right, get that out of here. Get that out of here. Hey, guys, how you doing? Welcome to another edition of the Tim Black and Night Show. Thank you for joining us. Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Periscope, 2 YouTube channels. We're all over the place, guys. Everybody who's tuned in, thank you for joining us. Tonight I have a special guest. This is someone that I've been on his show a number of times. I'm like, hey, man, the least I could do is bring him on my show so we can chop it up. Ladies and gentlemen, investigative reporter, journalist, Lee Stranahan. Give it up for him.
Hey, Jim.
Hey, Lee, what's up, man? Look, man, I complimented you off air, man. I love the background, brother. You look sharp, man.
Yeah, thank you. There's my bed's right behind here, so you know how we roll.
Yeah.
It looks good. It looks good right here.
Right.
If we go this way a little bit, you can see there's a hole. There you go.
Man,
I just destroyed I broke the 5th wall.
Look, man, don't give away your secrets, Lee. If they think you're in a big studio, let them think that, man.
Well, I'll tell you though, Tim, I have this thing, Citizen Journalism School. We're doing a course on how to do good-looking video like you do. So I don't care.
Yeah, man. Well, look, man.
I'll tell people and say I don't care.
Well, hey, it's working, brother. It's working, and yeah, man. Look, man. Thank you for joining me tonight, man.
Thanks for having me.
I know you stay so busy, Lee, man. You got a lot going on, brother. You got a couple of shows. You got the boot camp, the journalism school, man. How do you manage it all and still have time to do your research?
What I found is I end up doing research whether I want to or not. Like I'm so into it that I can't not do the research. So the best thing for me is to make sure I fit stuff in the schedule. That's why we do a radio show that you've been on a number of times. We love having you on. But one of the things that's great about the radio show, and you'll understand this, is I have to do it if I want to get paid. So I have to show up to do a show 7 to 10 a.m. every morning, or my wife is going to have some questions. And so I like forcing myself into a schedule like that, because I'll be honest, if I didn't have that schedule, I'd just lay around. You know what I mean? I just research all the time and I wouldn't output. So it's really nice having the show as a way to force me to produce something. So we're doing 3 hours a day of quality material. And then that goes out on YouTube and Periscope and everything else. And it's nice. It's a great gig. I got the best job. It's the best job. I've been doing journalism for about 10 years, and it's the best job I've ever had in journalism. It pays better, and they treat me well, and they never tell me what to say. And you've been on the show. It freaks people out because we're on Radio Sputnik. So we're Russian funded. But that being said, if any Russians come to your house, Tim, and said,
no, I was just about to say, Lee, man, every time I've been on the show, total disclaimer, guys, I want you guys to know from the heart, Lee has never prompted me to say anything.
How could I?
But you know what I mean? Like, there's no talking points. They might say, hey, these are the subjects we're covering, and Lee might throw this out at you, but that's about it, man. That's all the direction Eric and Garland, Garland's on there as well. What's up, Garland? So I just want people to know, just because it's Sputnik, and we're going to get to that, because you know that the myth is going around, that the rumors are, since you are Russian funded, you're somehow a tool of the Kremlin.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, well, I mean, you're inherently compromised in journalism by who you work for. Let me explain what I mean by that. There is no outlet, none, that everybody likes. In fact, any outlet you can name that you like, half the people hate it, just guaranteed, right? So my career trajectory, as I used to write for Huffington Post, I was a Democrat. I voted for Obama in 2008. And then I met Andrew Breitbart, and we became friends very quickly because he was not at all the guy who I thought he was or who he was made out to be. Then he passed about 18 months after we met. And he had said to me in the first conversation, he said, when I say I was a Democrat and I voted for Obama, let me point out my resume. I worked for MoveOn.org. I did videos for MoveOn.org. I did videos for Brave New Films. Daily Koz, Marcos from Daily Koz, said my video, comedy video in 2017 was the best political video of the year. Forgive me, 2007. Forgive me. Marcos doesn't like me anymore. And I'll tell you why. But so I had this background. Then I got picked up on Huffington Post. I got Time, Newsweek, Rolling Stone, all praising my comedy that I was doing back in 2007, 2008, right? And then I met, that got me into reporting. I did comedy first. And then that got me into reporting because at the time, we both know Lee Camp, right? So Lee was another guy who was at HuffPost, and he will tell you, at that time at Huffington Post, if you were writing for politics, let's say, okay, but the Capitals are playing. When we're recording this, the Capitals are playing, right? If you wanted to write about sports, let's say you could just do it. You just go over to that section, write in something, hit enter, and it would go up on the internet on Huffington Post right away. So if you wanted to write about cooking or travel or whatever, you had complete freedom in these early days. They didn't pay you, okay? Right. But you had complete freedom and one of the biggest platforms out there. So I started doing comedy. Then the John Edwards story broke. That's why Marcos got mad at me, because I was the guy on the left who was like, hey, this dude got caught in a hotel at 3 a.m. coming out of someone else's room, and he hid in the bathroom from the National Enquirer reporters. So I called the Beverly Hills police, and I said, hey, is it true that John Edwards hid in the bathroom and called you to get him out? And they said, yeah. So I talked to my wife, and I said, honey, if I was caught coming out of a hotel room at 3 a.m. and I hid in a bathroom to avoid reporters, would you be suspicious? And my wife was like, well, yeah. And I was like, well, yeah. I'm like, so I'm not crazy. But nobody on the left was talking about the Edwards thing. And I was just like, and I also pointed out, I said, I'm not trying to pass judgment. I said, I've been married twice. I said, I've screwed around. I'm not perfect, but I didn't do it. Let me point this out. I've never done it when I was running for president. And then I never took one of my campaign employees and made him take the fall when I got my mistress pregnant and had him move in with her. So I'm not perfect, but I'm not John Edwards.
You're not an idiot. It's probably what you want to say.
No, I mean, it was so to me, everybody now who remembers that story goes, well, duh. Right. It's like the Anthony Weiner story. Everyone now goes, Anthony Weiner, he's a sleazebag. Well, I was on those stories when they were being defended by people. Oh. And that was really an eye-opener to me, because Marcos, who had praised my video, and I was a featured blogger, I got kicked off Daily Koz. I got bumped. I got the hammer on Koz. And I found out later why. Marcos had a book coming out. Anyone can look this up. 2008, he had a book out. Guess who wrote the foreword? Elizabeth Edwards.
Oh, God.
So he didn't want to piss off Elizabeth Edwards with the story of the affair at all. Does that make sense?
Total.
So he let me get the hammer. So I went from like being praised, and then I met Andrew Breitbart, and he told me the first time I talked to him, he said, there's more freedom on the right. I said, you're crazy. Yeah. And he said, no, I swear. He said, I swear, you'll see. He said, you have more freedom of there's more latitude on the right. And that's been my experience. My experience has been there's been more latitude on the right.
Wow. And, you know what, Lee, the fact that you bring that up now, there's been a couple people that I've known who have gone from left to right, and they thought about it for a while. They told me, they said, hey, the same exact thing, Lee. They said the money's better, the women are hotter, the fans are more excited, more energized, considering after what Bernie Sanders went through.
The money's not better, actually.
Really?
The money was better on the left.
Well, maybe it is now under Trump, because you got the Trump fever sweeping through. So maybe things have heated up a little bit. You know, I mean, I see a lot of momentum on the right at the moment.
there's momentum, but there's not money. When I was on the left, Move On came to me. Brave New Films came to me. They saw what I was doing on HuffPost. My friend Brandon Darby had the same experience when he was at Katrina, when he was on the left, where Michael Moore would come down and write a check for $500,000, or Bruce Springsteen would come down and write a check for $500,000. There's nobody who does that on the right. And when I say Trump's cheap, I mean it. I used to talk when I was at Breitbart. I was talking to Steve Bannon early on when everyone's like, oh, Breitbart's in the tank for Trump and they must be getting paid. And Bannon said to me, he said, Trump is cheap. He hasn't even bought ads on Breitbart. He doesn't spend his own money. He said he's known in the business community for not spending his own money. And here's the problem on the right now. The right is completely funded. And this is an issue that I don't agree with the right on. But they're completely funded by Israel and the Israeli lobby. All the funding for Breitbart and all of these sites, almost all of them, is heavily, and I take what I think is a reasonable position on that. First off, I don't think Israel's going anywhere, so I don't like, Israel is there, right? I just wish they would treat the Palestinians better, and I wish there would be peace. And furthermore, I don't like being Israel's bitch, if you have to, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, you can.
And it's very clear to me under the foreign policy right now with guys who I don't like. Nikki Haley, guys, we'll go with that. Nikki Haley, John Bolton, that group, they're completely in the tank for Israel. Now, by the way, the Democrats are too. The Democrats are in the tank for Israel and these Soros-funded groups, right? And this is why there's no anti-war movement on the left, because Soros, who funds a lot of things people on the left like, the ACLU and the NAACP and Southern Poverty Law Center, also funds the Atlantic Council, which is a completely pro-war neocon think tank. So what they've done is, and it's not just Israel, it's Saudi Arabia and everything else. I was writing about Saudi Arabia when I was at Breitbart. No one was interested in it. And the reason they weren't interested in it, I found out later, was because Israel and Saudi Arabia are allies now, right? So I've always had this problem of not fitting in real well. You know, when I met Andrew, the reason I met Andrew was you remember back in, well, when was this? This would have been 2010 or 2011. Jon Stewart and Stephen Colbert did the Rally for Sanity in Washington. Do you remember that?
Yeah, vaguely.
They did this big event, which was a Rally for Sanity. And Jon Stewart did a speech then. And again, you know, I like the Daily Show, big fan of Stewart's and stuff like that. And he came out and he just said, one of the things he said in that speech was, he said, when you call everybody a racist, you're helping actual racist, because when you just go, well, you voted Republican, so you're a racist, and that's the same as David Duke or whoever, you're helping David Duke, because you're lowering the bar.
Absolutely.
He said racism's real, and it is, right? Yeah. And he said all these things are real, and that really, and it's gotten worse in 10 years since that happened.
I agree with you, Lee, but my thing is, and I want to come back to that, put a pin in that. How could you move from writing for the left and then writing for what I would consider the right so seamlessly? I mean, some of the concepts, the principles, the tenets of the left are in contradiction to the tenets on the right, supposedly. I mean, if we take out corporate money, that doesn't seem like that would work.
Well, here's what it was. When I met Andrew, he hired me quickly because I worked for Huffington Post, which, by the way, you know, Andrew Breitbart's the guy behind it. Huffington Post was Andrew's idea. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. No, I didn't. I thought it was Arianna Huffington.
Right, because Andrew worked for Arianna. He worked for Arianna.
Wow.
Andrew Breitbart worked for Drudge when Lewinsky happened. Huffington Post was literally his idea. He said to Arianna, you've got this amazing Rolodex of people. Blogging's coming along. You should put something together. And he was part of the company initially. So this is a guy who was, Andrew was a guy who was at the center. If you talk about the history of digital journalism, you have to talk about Monica Lewinsky, right? You have to talk about Drudge. He was there. You have to talk about HuffPost. He was there. And you have to talk about Breitbart, and he's Breitbart. So this is a guy whose resume was like, he's like the Forrest Gump. You know what I mean? Like, he was everywhere. And just a great guy. But so he hired me because he wanted somebody on the left to report on this thing called the Pigford Black Farmers Scandal. And this was something where black farmers had been discriminated against. So they were suing the USDA, but these lawyers got involved, and they made it so that anybody could get a $50,000 check if they claimed they tried to farm.
Wow.
And so $1 billion got paid out, tens of thousands of people who'd never farmed a day in their life. And the people who got screwed, guess who didn't get paid?
Actual farmers.
Because when they filed their thing, they said, well, no, you were turned down for cause. So there you go. So the guys who'd gotten screwed, these black farmers throughout the South, Andrew had made friends with. And I was going through the South interviewing former USDA Secretary Mike Espy, all through the South, interviewing farmers and people from the Nation of Islam and lawyers and everything. And we uncovered the scandal. And immediately friends of mine on the left were like, you're racist and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, everybody I'm interviewing is black. And they're saying they're the ones who are mad about this. And I didn't think it was controversial to report on fraud, right? Like, and by the way, the lawyer behind this, Al Pires, he's whiter than me. You know what I mean? He's paler than me. And that's saying something. And so Pires was the guy behind it. And later, after Andrew died, I got attacked by all my friends and like thrown out of the club. Eric Bollert from Media Matters, he was a friend of mine. He wrote a chapter in a book about me. He wrote a book called Bloggers on the Bus, whole chapter about me. Eric immediately turned on me because Media Matters. So they immediately turned on me. And later, after Andrew died, about a year after Andrew died, the New York Times, I had given all my material to a New York Times reporter because I'd done my work. I said, here you go. They confirmed everything we said. This is completely a fraudulent thing. Front page, above the fold, New York Times story confirming it. So I didn't think it was controversial to report on fraud that was hurting black farmers, which by the way is a kind of significant issue, because when you farm, a lot of these farmers who I talk to, you have a degree of independence. You know what I mean? Like, one of the things these farmers liked about their lifestyle is they were their own people, right? They would grow enough food to feed themselves and to sell off something, and then they were business people and, different size farms and everything.
Right.
And I didn't think it was controversial, but apparently it was. And so it wasn't until after, like, literally the day Andrew died, I'm like, if Andrew Breitbart was a conservative, then I guess I'm a conservative. I said, because I don't like the same things. And for me, but I didn't change my view on same-sex marriage. I'm pro. I don't care. I don't care if 2 dudes or 2 ladies want to get married, whatever. I don't care. If 3 dudes or 4 ladies want to get married, I don't care. Right. And I'm pro legalization of weed and stuff like that. And none of that had a change, which actually goes to the point that I said earlier, which is nobody was like, no, you have to be against gay marriage, right? I was like, I was saying to people on the right, I'm like, you've lost this already. I'm like, it's over. It's the same way I feel about weed legalization now, right? Or I felt this for years. It's over, right? Weed, I know. It's not legal everywhere, and it's not blah, 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 blah. Give it 5 years, right? Some things are so obvious. It's clear where it's headed, the end of the road is. Right. And I just can't be unrealistic about that stuff. So I wasn't forced to change. The one thing that I did change, and it took a while, was abortion, mainly because I got kids. And then I interviewed this one black farmer, Eddie Slaughter, and who's a friend of mine in Georgia. And while I was doing this Pigford thing, he said, "Now don't tell anyone I'm a Republican." I'd never met a black Republican who was like a regular person. I said, "Why?" He said, "I think abortion's black genocide." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Do you know who Margaret Sanger is?" And I was a smart liberal, so I said, no, I don't know who Margaret Sanger is. He said, "She founded Planned Parenthood. She's a straight up racist. Go look into the Negro Project." And I looked into it, and I was like, oh my God. Yeah. And I've talked to people from Nation of Islam since the Farrakhan right now has been talking about this abortion thing for a while. So again, I didn't view it as like, I don't think legislation is the right way to affect people on abortion, but I think it's a hearts and minds thing, right? I think you need to be willing to help people. But that being said, I realize that practically after having kids, I think that affects you. And it's easy to have abortions or pay for abortions when you've had no kids. Does that make sense? Like just psychologically.
Oh, well, yeah. I would think so. I mean, I've never had an abortion personally, but I would imagine that it would be a lot of trepidation. You've already got kids.
Most people, if they have abortions, I'm talking about men paying for them or women having them, it's before they have kids, mostly. And there's a reason for that. Because after you have a kid, you go, okay, well, that didn't have to happen. And Andrew Breitbart, I'll tell you, Andrew Breitbart, he never argued with me on politics, never once. So I said, well, what do you think about abortion? He said, well, I'll tell you, and I'd never heard this argument before. He said, I'm adopted. I was born in 1969. He said, I felt like if I had been conceived 5 years later, I wouldn't be here. And he said, that always stuck with me when I was growing up. Like I was,
kind of slid in under the right because the nation consciousness went to.
That's right.
Right.
Right. And so I'd never thought of that before. I'm not adopted, and so I'd never thought of that before. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting perspective. So that was the one that was trickier for me, but even that one was like that took a while. But even that one, I don't view that my. I do think there's something very. Anybody can look up Margaret Sanger and the Negro Project. She was straight up racist eugenicist, which is why Farrakhan and those people are talking about her. And so I when I look at that, I do think it's racist. And if someone was trying to kill a lot of black babies, which she was, and then you look at the black abortion rate now, it's like 6 times higher. That's not like double. If the black abortion rate per capita was double, that's a lot. You know what I mean? Like right. That's a big jump. But like 6 times, that's crazy. And so that was the trickiest thing for me. And it took me a while. And I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not pro-abortion. I'm not, I don't think.
Well, it's not pro-abortion, it's pro-choice, which is a little bit different. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not
some people are pro-abortion. I'm not saying everybody is pro-choice, is pro-abortion, but there were people trying to put up a billboard. They put up a billboard in a black neighborhood that said basically, you could be aborting the next Obama. Right? That's not a conservative message. That's a, hey, think about it before you have an abortion.
Well, it's also tied into like religion and Christianity and whatever religion people practice. That's another part of it, I think, for some people.
It is, but they put up the billboard, right? And they were forced to take it down. Now that's pro-abortion to me. When you force people to remove a message that says, hey, you might want to think. It wasn't like advocating for a law. It was just like, hey, think about it before you get an abortion.
Well, you know, it's one of those things where people who may have had abortions don't want to walk around every day and think about it. Maybe they regret it. Maybe they, maybe they're still on the fence. Maybe it's not something they're proud of, and they got to see this billboard every day. For them, maybe it's a different feeling. You know what I mean?
but I'm freedom of speech, right? So you'd think if that was why take that, why force that down? It was like, to me, it was like weird. It was like, no, that's pro-abortion. And I see people, I talk, most people who are pro-choice aren't like, yay, abortion. But there are some who are. And I'm like, I'm not really down with that. I'm not, like, that's just ignorant to me. It's just, it's short-sighted. If somebody said in one specific circumstance I had to do this or whatever, that's fine. But there are some people who are like, proud. They're just proud of it. And it's clearly promoted in the black community. It always bothered me. And so that was one that was tricky for me. But other than that,
yeah, economics, a lot of things play into it, but I do understand, and I actually did a piece recently about Margaret Sanger. I forget who it was, what the actual story was, but a lot of people weren't familiar with eugenics. When I had Jane Elliott, the author of the Blue-Eyed Brown-Eyed Test, who came on my show, and she talked about it as well, about the controlling the loss of white babies and this sort of movement to up the numbers of white folks in the United States and in European countries. So
and what Sanger said the Negro Project was specifically about, we need to recruit, she said, we need to recruit black leaders to encourage people to have abortions. It's like, that's crazy. And so I've seen it. It's an emotional issue, but I have a friend who's a liberal Democrat, a woman, and she was at a meeting with a bunch of other liberal Democrats, right? She's progressive. And she said, at this meeting of women, she said, I'm pro-choice, but it is awful. She's like, I've had an abortion. It's awful. And they were like, you can't say that.
Wow.
Like, what do you mean I can't say that? She's like, I'm not trying to change the law, but my experience was bad. They're like, you can't say that because it makes it seem like you're against abortion. She was like, I'm checking out. I can't.
That sounds a little weird. You're right. It does sound a little weird that she can't express her experience.
That's right. Yeah. And people. Yeah. And so that was the one that was trickier for me. Other than that, like I say, I voted for Obama. I've never regretted voting for Obama. My choice there was Obama or McCain. I'll stick with Obama on that one. And I think people miss the fact. I don't think people see how Trump is Obama.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because that is something, Lee, that I've been grappling with, trying to get people to understand that there are, I'm not a person who's like, oh man, I hate Trump. Right. I try not to cover Trump as much as possible. Like, I try to limit my coverage of Trump, because most of what they put out there, Lee, as you know, brother, it's not about policy. It's about his personality. But when I try to bring people, so for instance, the immigration issue, I don't know. I know Trump has ramped up the numbers of deportations, but they were Obama wasn't playing around, brother. He deported a lot of people. He was the deporter in chief, and the fact that it never really reached the corporate media, they didn't blast it out on MSNBC or CNN, and I didn't see a bunch of marches. And if I did, they weren't publicized if they happened. But
and the separating kids thing they're talking, that all happened under Obama as well.
Absolutely. And so how do you deal with trying to let people know, well, I may not like this. You may not like this, but this was happening under Obama as well. Yeah. What's up?
I've had people like, well, how did you go from voting for Obama in 2008 to voting for, supporting, I didn't vote in 2016. I was on the road, but to supporting Trump in 2016. And I said, because I don't like Clinton Bush. Never liked him. I'm not an establishment person. And I think the thing that's so confusing to a lot of people now is that we're at a midway point in a political growth, I think, that America's going through. And that frankly, the world is going through. That's based on technology. This is real simple. 10 years ago, nobody, the iPhone's 10 years old, right? So it's only been 10 years of all of human history that everybody has been walking around with a supercomputer in their pocket that is also a camera and a research device and a communication device and a video camera and all but everything it is, right? I got, basically it's like a news truck in my pocket, which sounds dirty. But so what's happened is you used to be 100% reliant on big media. Then about 10 years ago, HuffPost and Breitbart and some of those sites started to come up. And now you had some alternatives. Now they've all been co-opted because Breitbart's absolutely been co-opted. HuffPost sucks now. It's just not interesting anymore. And the reason why is the established. So who used to have access to the information? By definition, it was the rich and powerful, right?
Right.
And now people can look into stuff for themselves. So if I talk about Margaret Sanger or whatever, and I go to the Negro Project, people don't have to take my word for it. The example I always use is arguing about lyrics. When I was growing up, if you and I were talking about a song, and I'm like, no, dude, Creedence Clearwater did that song, There's a Bathroom on the Right. And you're like, what are you talking about? There's a bad moon on the rise. And I'm like, no, dude, listen, it's a bathroom on the right. Listen to it. That debate could go on for weeks. When I was growing up, there was no settling that stuff.
Yeah, I don't remember the Clearwater, but I remember Slick Rick had a song, and it was Lottie Dottie, and it was one part of it I could never figure out what he was talking about.
Lottie Dottie, we likes to party.
Yeah, so like I relate to what you're saying. That's a very good example of
how the internet. Slick Rick.
So many times, Lee, man, I'll be talking to my wife, and she'll ask me a question, and I'll be like, why are you asking me? You got a computer in your pocket.
That's right.
Don't ask. Look it up. And I look smart because I look up things like when we have problems, but it's just I got the internet, man. That's
exactly right, and everybody's figured that out. And so what's happened is you used to in the tech world they talk about like cycles of innovation, right? If you look at the first 50 years of computing, right, there were gigantic room-sized computers. Then the next 20 years was like a 10x jump.
Yeah.
Now there's new revolutions like every couple of years.
It's crazy,
right? And I've been using computers for 40 years. I had a TRS. I was at the Apple store tonight. I had a TRS-80 with 4K of memory. You can't get anything. I don't do text files that are 4K. I can't do anything that's 4K.
Yeah.
And so what's happened is, this is significant in human history, all of human history, except the last 10 years. You could never look up stuff. You could never figure out stuff. You could never communicate internationally. Even long distance when I was growing up. Do you remember long distance phone calls?
I remember those, yeah.
It was a lot of money if you wanted to call your friend in California.
Puerto Rico or anything like that. Canada was
crazy. That's why I don't have any Canadian Puerto Rican friends. So because who could afford it? But so what's happened is people can figure out can I swear?
Oh yeah. This is YouTube,
okay.
man.
Because on my show, we can't swear.
Right.
So don't get any ideas.
That's because you got a real show, Lee. You're on the radio.
I'm on the radio right after I am, right? But people can figure out the bullshit now. Mm-hmm. People can go, oh, wait a minute, I'm being lied to, and like the Skripal poisoning and the Syria thing, and it took when JFK got assassinated in 1963. It took 15 years before people started to go, wait a minute. The CIA may have covered up stuff.
Yeah.
Now, the Syria bombing, the Skripal poisoning, all the stuff that's going on, people figure it out in like I'll put it like this. If there's a school shooting, as soon as they give the shooter's name, everybody in the country is immediately Googling them, right?
Yep. And
going to their Facebook feed and hoping they don't like the same bands or political parties that they do. Because, if there's a school shooting and you go check out the guy and you're like, and he's got Children's Story by Slick Rick up there, you're like, oh no, oops.
Right.
I don't like that. But if you're a Democrat, you don't want him to be a Democrat. If you're a Republican, but everybody's figured that game out. Now, that's not tricky. You just look it up. Okay, here's the shooter. So what's happened is you can't fool people as quickly anymore, and it is freaking the establishment out. They are completely poof. Talk about Kennedy.
Yeah. They can't control it, man. Hence all of the censorship on Facebook, all the censorship that you've been facing, I've been facing.
And you've been facing, right.
Yeah, you know, I'm actually back on my main channel now, Lee. It just happened a couple of days ago, so I'm like really happy about that. But
yeah, good for you.
Thanks, brother. But when we talk about like the Trump situation and look, if you're not, would you consider yourself a Trump supporter or what?
I'm a Trump supporter in the sense that I don't agree with everything, and I talk about it. Foreign policy, I don't agree with it. I don't agree completely with some stuff on the economy. I'm not thrilled with the tariffs, but let's see how it works out. There's parts of the economy, the jobs numbers and stuff, that are doing clearly very, very well right now. But I'm in favor of him in the sense that I had two real options in the election, Trump and Hillary. And I'm never going to regret voting for Trump in that one. I don't care if other people vote supporting him. I don't care. I don't care if other people vote for him or don't vote for him or don't care. Here's what it is. I said this before, but Trump is Obama. What I mean by that is what swung the election for both Obama and Trump was people who were sick of establishment bullshit. They looked at Obama and they're like, I don't want Hillary. I don't know who this guy is, but he seems different. He's not Bush and he's not Clinton. And I don't know, what the hell, let's roll the dice. Let's give it a shot. And parts of it didn't work out well. I mean, he had Rahm Emanuel on right away. I was talking about that when I was at HuffPost. I'm like, well, where did Rahm Emanuel come from, you know? And so with Trump, it's exactly the same thing. It was a lot of people who were like, I don't like Hillary and I don't like Jeb Bush. Yeah. What the hell? Let's roll the dice. Let's try.
It's so funny that you say that, Lee, because I told you I was doing stand-up with Lee, and I didn't know, Lee Camp, and I didn't know that you used to do stand-up, that you did comedy. You got a comedy album. I got to check that out. But it's funny that you say that because one part of my acting, I hate giving this away, but you already did. I say that. I say, you know, there's two types of Trump supporters. And one of the types of Trump supporters are people who voted for Trump because they couldn't vote for the devil. They couldn't vote for Hillary. And they were like, we got to get past this Hillary and Bush shit. So that's part of so we're on the same page in that regard. Definitely, brother.
And here's the other thing. As a Republican, well, I'll put it like this. I'm actually I think I'm a registered libertarian now, because in 2014, I was working up in South Dakota. I'm in favor of whatever you have to do to work through the system. This is really important. Like, I became a libertarian in 2014 because there was a guy running for Attorney General, Marty Jackley, as a Republican. That's a completely Republican-controlled state. And the Democrats are so cowed up in South Dakota, they literally didn't even run somebody for Attorney General. Nobody on the ballot. Nobody. So we looked at it, and this guy's a bad guy. He's the Attorney General. He's a bad guy. He's done a lot of stuff. We report on stuff. But we looked at it, and we were like, how is it that he has no opposition? That's wrong. So we took over the Libertarian Party in South Dakota with 15 people. So I got into this debate with Garland today, my co-host on the show this morning, because he became an independent, and he lives in Maryland. And I said, I appreciate you being independent mentally, but don't you think you've taken yourself out of the game? Because now you can't vote in the Democrat primary, which means he wants Ben Jealous for governor, right?
Right.
He can't vote for Ben Jealous in the primary. And I'm like, I don't think you helped yourself there. I said, I think you can be mentally independent, but you have to realize there's a system in place, and I want to smash the system. I don't like the stranglehold that the Democrats and Republicans have, and I'll vote against it every time I can, and I'll speak against it every chance I get. But while you got a system that's in place right now, I think you almost have to be part of a major political party if you actually want to make a difference right now. And I hope it changes, and I'm trying to make a change. But I mean, if it right now, if it were Tulsi Gabbard versus Donald Trump, which it won't be, that's the problem with the Democrats. But if it were Tulsi Gabbard versus Donald Trump in 2020, I would be very tempted to vote for Tulsi Gabbard. I probably would, because I'm so unhappy with the foreign policy stuff, and she's so good on the foreign policy stuff that I would go, okay, I can deal with that. But the problem is, and the Bernie thing showed this, the Democrats, they don't even look. I'll put it like this: if the Republicans could have stopped Donald Trump with superdelegates, they would have done it like that in a heartbeat. And guys like Bill Kristol and David Frum and these guys, they wish they could, but there's more. No, they do. They would have done anything to stop Trump because they thought he was going to be more independent than he was, or whatever.
When you said that Trump and Obama, you said that Trump is Obama.
Yeah.
Well, are there people who are consider themselves conservatives? I know you said you're a libertarian, who try to.
I'm registered as a libertarian.
Oh, registered. Okay.
Because I had to
do, but you did in South Dakota.
To do something, yeah,
to get involved. But my thing is, are there people on let's just say the right, man? I hate dividing people, but are there people that support Trump who are trying to wake up people to Trump's policies? Because I often feel, Lee, like when I was a Democrat, when I was looking at what Obama did, I tried to wake people up to Obama. And I'm not seeing people willing to do that in media space, people who are in the media whose audience is on the right.
What do you mean wake people up to Obama? Do you mean like say, hey, I'm not down with this part of what they're doing?
Yeah, like out there saying, hey, I don't like him on the immigration. I don't like what he's doing. Hey, this DACA thing, kicking the can down the road. Look what he did in South Dakota with the indigenous people there, the Standing Rock situation. I didn't like that. I didn't like the bombings. I didn't like Yemen. I didn't like Syria. I didn't like Afghanistan. I didn't like any of it. He's supposed to get people out. He put more people in. I didn't like him bailing out the banks. I mean, I was very vocal, and I find it hard to find people on the right who have the same veracity if it's the policy that Trump is instituting. Like they're not pushing back. At least I don't see it. But am I missing it, or is it happening?
No, it's happening a little bit. You didn't much get it. Here's what it is: on both sides, there's a tremendous pressure to keep in line, right? Stay in line. Don't jump out of it. I mean, I said this morning. Like, what was the thing that came up? Oh yeah, this thing with Trump commuting the sentence of
Alice Johnson. Alice Marie Johnson. Yes.
Yeah. So what I said two things. Number one, there were some people like Evan McMullin, who's a Republican, who literally jumped on Trump and Kardashian and for freeing this woman. Wow. What? That's crazy. And there were and some liberals were up there going, look, I don't like Trump and I'm not even a big Kardashian fan, but this was good. So what are you doing? But what I said was, so there's a little bit of that. And Republicans, a friend of mine who's a Republican, who's a black Republican, Ali Alexander, was like, you know Ali a little bit. And Ali was like, well, see, MAGA, we're more welcoming. Now, what I said on the radio show this morning was, I said, but are you going to tell me that if Kim Kardashian had gone to Obama and wanted Alice Marie Johnson sprung, that you would be in favor of it? Because if not, you're a hypocrite. You're either okay with a celebrity using their celebrity to help this woman get out, or you're not. And I don't care who the president is. You either agree with it or you don't, and don't be a hypocrite. And so I'm that. I'm a Christian, but like the Christ, my favorite Jesus is the one that flipped over the tables, and the money changer. That's my favorite part. That's my Bible story, and so I've tended to be that way wherever I am. And I'll tell you, the answer is, if you looked at the media, let's take you, Tim. You say you see it because you're on the left. You see people pushing back, but do you think the media is representing that people on the left were pushing back against Obama?
Absolutely no. That's why I was asking you the question, because I'm sure it'd be hard to find those people. And on the left is like, what we have is corporate media, and they do the same thing. They want you to stay in line, or you get what I've had smear articles written about me in the Washington Post, man, like including me, because, well, of course this guy's a conspiracy theorist because he's, he actually thinks that WikiLeaks documents were actually authentic, and they were authentic. And
of course they were, yeah.
But the point you made about the people who are hypocrites, you feel they're being hypocritical if they wouldn't respect Obama giving clemency. I think it's commuting the sentence.
Yeah.
But I looked at the same thing with the Jack Johnson, because I had people on the right, Lee, ribbing me like, look what Trump did for Jack Johnson, Obama didn't do it. And I said, what if Obama would have done it? If Obama, a black president with a black attorney general, posthumously pardons a black man who slept with white women, I bet you would have had something to say. And it was sort of the same thing, like, okay, shut it up.
Yeah, well, that's what's great about the forum that I have now, is that Sputnik is, I don't have any pressure I don't have any pressure, period. But the pressure that's completely gone is I don't have any pressure to address a Republican audience or a Democrat audience. I have this interesting background of 10 years of journalism where I understand how the left thinks, and I understand how the right thinks, and I understand culturally both the left and the right, and I understand politically the left and the right. I really do. I mean, I really do, to the point where after I left HuffPost, I was we used to call it front paged. Well, I've been front paged on HuffPost, but not under my name since I moved to the right. I've written pieces for people on the left. I've ghost written pieces that got front page, not because we pulled any strings, but because I know, and it was over an issue that I agree with this person on. But I've ghost written pieces that have gotten. So when I say I understand how the left thinks, I do. I mean, I know how to write, blah, blah, blah. But I understand how the right thinks as well. And I understand how they're both messed up. And I have this long history of being like, I can, the loyal opposition. I get what you're going for, but that's not the right way to do it. Or you're betraying, I don't, like I say, I mean, I supported Trump, but I don't like the foreign policy at all. The guy who's good at this right now is Rand Paul. Rand Paul's done a very good job of criticizing President Trump without being a dick. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like some of the people just don't care. They're straight up Trump on the right, straight up Trump haters, Bob Corker or whoever, right? Rand Paul has always been like, I agree with the president, I support the president, but I agree with what he ran on, and it's not firing missiles into Syria. That's a good way to do it. You know what I mean? Right.
Instead of the orange hair, the little hands, Misty Snowy, whatever her name is, Stormy Daniels, and all this other stuff. But I know you don't have that much time left, Lee, but I want to get your take on a couple of things, man.
Sure.
Have you heard about what about the McCain thing? Because you brought up McCain. Let me go with that one. The intern, the White House aide, who made the comment about John McCain and he's going to be dying soon because he wouldn't support the president on the Gina Haspel confirmation. What did you think about that in light of political correctness and stuff?
First off, that's one of the few issues I agreed with McCain on. I didn't support Gina Haspel's nomination either at all. That being said, it's in poor taste to speak ill of the dead. But John McCain's alive, so let me talk about why I hate that motherfucker. McCain is awful, and in particular issues like Syria, he has been, and Ukraine, which I care a lot about because I went to Lebanon in 2013. McCain is as bad as you can get and always has been, and he's a contemptible person as well, in my opinion. Who got through the military because his dad was an admiral, crashed a lot of planes, left his dying wife. Who does that, right? His wife, this is decades ago.
Right.
So McCain's contemptible. That being said, I don't like, since when did the media like McCain? Because they didn't like him, I remember 2008. Right. Suddenly, he's the elder statesman and blah, blah, blah. And it's all because they don't like Trump. And it's all because the media in this country is sucks up to the military-industrial complex, and so does McCain. And Haspel was one example where he didn't. And okay, but good, he's right on that. But I'm not a fan at all. And I don't care if someone so what someone in the White House talk whatever. You know, McCain apparently gets to say anything he wants to. It's a double standard, so I didn't care about that.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely agree that. I just felt that she did apologize, like the nooks and crannies, the details of the story. Even if you say, well, that's repugnant, she did apologize in private. It's not like she didn't apologize, and I think they just make more of it than they need to. But
I think it's worse when someone's dead because they can't respond. Right? That's why it's not fair. It's a punk move, right? When someone's dead, to basically look down and go, okay, now let me tell you what I think. Okay. You're not moving, right? Okay.
Hell, man.
Now, you son of a bitch. Let me talk about this.
Yeah.
Just do it. If you like somebody, I just said what I said about McCain now because he's alive, so he could respond. His daughter's got me blocked on Twitter for a couple of years, so I don't think Megan will be saying anything. But I would say more respectfully, but if McCain came on the show, I'd talk policy with him. I wouldn't just insult the guy.
Right.
Because I don't roll that way on the show. But I'm not a fan at all. And like I say, since when did the media like McCain? I don't remember. I missed that part. I missed that. But the memo came down was once Obama beat him and once McCain came out hard against Trump, suddenly it's like, oh, he's so wise now. He's an elder statesman.
Yeah. It fit the agenda, definitely.
I never liked him. There was no point where I liked John McCain. And after he's dead, I won't say I liked him. I will say nothing. That's the way I'm going to roll on it. I'm just going to go.
Yeah. What do you think? Let's switch to this. What do you think about the Awans brothers case? They say now that they're going to cut a deal, or he's looking to cut a deal. I think it's next week he'll be meeting to try to discuss that, some type of arrangement so that there's no actual trial. And, I don't know if you know this, but I've had Tim Canova on the show several times. I support his campaign. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is one of the clients of the Awan brothers, and she kept that guy employed for so long. It was like she didn't care. And we've got all this evidence of the Awan case, like all these Democrats, 40, 50 Democrats, Lee, that could have been compromised, data compromised, and now they don't want to prosecute it.
Not maybe. We're compromised. We know 100%. We know 100% that material was being taken off of those servers. The Awan brothers story is one of the stories, and there's 4 or 5, I would say, that I've worked on a little bit. But the guy who's done a great job in this is Luke Rosiak over at Daily Caller News Foundation. We've had him on a number of times. Just a straight report. And by the way, the Republicans, where's Paul Ryan been on this? Where are Republicans? You don't hear Louis Gohmert the other night. It's the only Republican who's I've heard really speak out about this. And thank God the president said something about this today, but it's such a buried story. Right. There is no way that this story, first off, if it were a Republican, the media would have been all, if it was 40 or 50 Republicans, the media would have been all, I just think they would have been all over this. But the Republicans haven't gone after it either. And I don't know why exactly, except what we know for sure that they did, not what they're not even accused, what we know for sure. We know that a laptop was left in the Capitol, was found in a phone booth at the Capitol at midnight. We know that the server was compromised. We know that these guys were making, even just for getting paid a huge amount of money and not doing the work, which also happened. And just for Debbie Wasserman Schultz's reaction, this is covering up something. There's something under this, and I don't know what it is. but there's something under it, which is why neither Ryan or the Democrats want to touch it. Republicans and Democrats don't want to touch this. So.
Yeah, I actually just became aware of Rosiak today because I saw his reporting. I think I saw someone retweeted him, so I went and saw that he'd been covering this story for a very long time. And then
over a year. Yep.
Yeah, definitely, brother.
When I was at Breitbart, I hosted a radio show there a couple times, and I had him on. I was the first person to have him on as a guest because I could see then that this story was good. But he's done such a good job that I don't want to sound like a dick, but a lot of stories, I just go, oh my God, everyone's fucking this up. Oh my God. And I almost feel like I have to jump in. Like the Russiagate thing is that to some extent. I'm like, oh my God, Luke has done such a good job in reporting this. I didn't feel like I had to jump in. I didn't, like the Seth Rich thing. I had to speak up about that because I saw a lot of BS. I'm not a Seth Rich. I knew about the Seth Rich thing very, 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 very early. I think it was probably, all the evidence I've seen is it looks like it was a botched robbery to me. I don't think Seth was behind the DNC, anything, blah, blah, blah. But I had to jump into that and say something because I saw a lot of people, especially on the right, frankly, making money off of Seth Rich's death, which bothered me. And so there are people on the right who act like, by the way, these people, there's this guy, Matt Couch, real Matt Couch on Twitter. Right? Matt Couch is a guy who quit his job to do Seth Rich. He's being sued by the family.
Wow.
Okay? I pointed out that Matt Couch would hate Seth. First off, Seth Rich would hate Matt Couch. Seth Rich was not a Republican. Period. He was working for Hillary. He was excited to be working for Hillary. So he wasn't even a Bernie person as far as I can tell. He was a Democrat, just a straight up Democrat, which fine, be that.
I thought they traced him to an account, something called Panda, that was a hard line Bernie supporter.
That's what Kim.com said. I don't buy it. I just don't. I haven't seen. Well, here's why I don't buy it, because I haven't seen any proof of it. I've seen a claim. Kim.com said that, and but I didn't see the proof of it. So if I see proof of it, then I'll go, okay, well, I guess that's who he is. But
what about the proof that now we talked about this before on the show, and you said that what the forensicator and these folks had uncovered, you said that information wasn't accurate about the download, the transfer rate of the files to the actual files, the WikiLeaks files, and you said that couldn't have happened.
So it's not that it's inaccurate; it's irrelevant. So the forensicator looked at files that were transferred on July 5th. Well, the hacking, we know the last date, which was in May. Okay? So the hacking, whatever, I'm just using the term hacking because it could have been an inside job. I just don't think Seth Rich had anything to do with it, and I don't think...
There's no way to prove that, yeah. But So use the term leak then, because I like it better.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's totally fine. Yeah. I struggle...
Because they haven't proved that it was hacked, Lee. So you said I'm
struggling trying to find the right word, so I'll go with leak, right? I'll go with that. That's a good one. So we know, well, no, not leaking. See, it's still not right because there was hacking. This is very clear that there was hacking. There's a variety of ways we know that, but there was somebody in the system. We know that, but all of the last date on any of the emails is like the end of May. The forensicator is talking about files that were transferred on July 5th. And a lot of people go, well, see, how were those transferred? I'm like, because if you look at Guccifer 2's timeline, his WordPress site was hacked on like July 4th. So what I think that is those files were transferred because his system had been hacked and he had them on a thumb drive or something. But that has nothing to do with when he acquired the files. In other words, I could take file. Let's say I stole stuff off your computer 5 years ago, and now I got it on a thumb drive, right? This isn't a thumb drive, but let's go with it. So now I transfer it today, right? Well, it would show the faster file speed because I transferred it today. But the fact is, I got the material 5 years ago, and that's what the problem with the forensicator's thing. And I talked to the forensicator, contacted me before they published that. And I said to him, hey, I got files from Guccifer too. We didn't even get into that, but I dealt with Guccifer too, whoever that is. I don't know who it is. And it could be a group. I have no idea who it is. But they sent me files. And so I said to the forensicator, hey, do you want these files? And they never got back to me. So if you're interested in trying to figure it out, I got files from the person directly. Well, that would seem like it might indicate something, right? If you're able to do that kind of analysis. And I've argued with like Bill Binney, has been on my show a number of times. And every time it comes up, I just have to go, a July 5th transfer has nothing to do with when the files were taken. The files were taken in May or before. They weren't, certainly by July, by June 14th or whatever, when the Washington Post story came out. So that's what it is. I'm saying the file transfer speed is what it says it is, but so it's July 5th. That has nothing to do with when the files were taken initially.
So do you believe the Russian narrative that the Russians hacked the DNC service?
No, and I never did. Back when I was at Breitbart, I ghost wrote a piece for Roger Stone that appeared on Breitbart, but I could never get the editors at Breitbart to listen to me. I was trying to tell them this story's not going to go away. And now 2 years later, I was right and they're stupid. But I was trying to get them to see that this was a story that had legs. I never bought into the Russian narrative. It didn't seem to me like at all like Russia would create a WordPress account and a Twitter account. And here's what it is. It's not that I don't think Russia might hack other countries. I do. They might.
I believe it.
We do. China does, right? Lots of countries do.
Right.
But if you're Russia, just think this through. Why not take the files and just on the down low give them to Assange without saying a word? Why not do that? Because if you look at Guccifer 2, he was getting no traction on those files until WikiLeaks put them out. Nothing. People weren't interested, literally were not interested. So if you're Russia, you get the files. Here, Julian, quietly. Here you go. Then Julian doesn't say where he got the files from.
But he did intimate where he got the files, though. That was the other Seth part, was that you remember that interview where he brought up a young staffer at the DNC who was killed, and we get this information at great risk. And for somebody like me who believes that Julian Assange is an honest person, and I felt that he was.
What he said. I believe he's honest too. He never said it was Seth Rich, and he was asked directly, and he didn't do it. Julian Assange.
But he said he would never give up a source, Lee.
Well, then he shouldn't have. Then, if that's the case, then he wouldn't have even said what he said. That, in fact, that's the proof to me that he was not talking about Seth Rich. Because if he's not going to give up a source, why basically
walk us all the way up to the gate?
Exactly right. What I think he was doing was, I think the Seth Rich thing was something he was interested in. I think he was trying to get eyeballs.
He put money for an award. The WikiLeaks put up money for a reward to the capture of the killer of Seth Rich.
Yes, and I think that also Assange is very good at working the media. That's the only interview he ever intimated that during. He did in one interview, and he never did it again. And I also think that if it was Seth Rich, Assange has absolutely no reason to keep. In other words, if you give me something as a journalist, I have a responsibility to keep you anonymous,
right?
Until you're dead, right? After you're dead, kind of all bets are off at that point, because what are they going to do to you? They're not going to do anything. So if Assange came out and said, we got it from Seth Rich, what are they going to do? He's dead. And so I want the Seth Rich thing to be solved. He did get murdered, period.
Absolutely.
I don't know who killed him. See, I'm one of those journalists. I have this weird habit of I'm willing to go, I don't know. I'm so like, if people are like, well, who's Guccifer 2? I'm like, I don't know. How do I know? I wish I knew. If I knew, I would tell you.
You know, You know, you do know this. I had Donna Brazile on the show, and I asked her about Seth Rich. In fact, I asked her 3 questions about Seth Rich, and she was pushing back, and she did say that she was very paranoid. And I'm like, what are you paranoid of? Because she lives in D.C.
Yeah.
You know, people get shot in D.C. a lot. Like, it used to be the murder capital. Things have changed since gentrification. But what are you so worried about if you don't think that he was killed over these files? Why would you be concerned about some random act of violence? Why would you be looking out your windows and looking at your phone scary? I don't understand it.
Well, I read her book.
I did.
Donna, if you're listening, I bought your book. So come on my radio show.
There you go.
And but I read her book, and do you know who made her? If you read her book, she tells you who made her paranoid. A guy named Sean Henry. Sean Henry's the former FBI head of cybersecurity, and he's with CrowdStrike. We're the only people to examine the DNC servers. And she describes in her book how Sean Henry came over and scared the fuck out of her. I mean, she's very clear. She was like, I was petrified. And she go, read that. Just look up, look in the book for Sean Henry. You'll see.
Yeah.
That's who made her paranoid. And I've seen this happen to people before. Donna Brazile is not, shall we say, the most tech savvy person. I think she would agree with that.
Yeah.
And so think of her like, your grandmother, whatever. Most people's grandmother, not the most tech savvy person. So if you went over to your grandmother's house, you could really scare her.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's probably already moderately scared. And, but that's who made Donna Brazile paranoid. And I'll tell you, like I say, I mentioned before that I was one of the first people I know. I was the first person I know. You can go back to my Twitter feed. Do you know where I heard about Seth Rich? DNC, Philadelphia. DNC in Philadelphia. I was covering it for Breitbart, and there's a dude with a sign that said, "I am Seth Rich." And I walked up to him. I said, "What is that?" I don't like to generally walk up to people with my camera rolling. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I prefer to walk up, talk to him, and then go, "Hey, can I film you?" Some exceptions. But the dude was just, I could have done it, but I said, "What does your sign mean?" Because I didn't know what that meant. Because Seth had been dead like a week. And he told me, he said, and he was a Democrat. He said Seth Rich was killed. He was a DNC, and he got killed the day after Bernie Sanders endorsed Hillary. And I said, "Can I film you saying that?" So I did a short video. I filmed him saying that. I also don't like to, if people have a sign and that's what it means, I'll just film it. Boom. I don't have to comment on it. Does that make sense? Like, here's what the dude said. So I posted it to my Twitter account.
Uh-oh.
And it's been up there forever. And it's one of the first indications about Seth Rich. When I came to D.C., when I moved here about close to a year and a half ago, I talked to a friend of mine who's a reporter, who's a very good reporter. I don't want to say who it is. But I said, "Hey, what do you think about the Seth Rich story?" And they told me, they said, "I looked into it. Here's what I know." And they gave me a lot of stuff on background. And I'm like, okay. And everything I've seen since then has confirmed that it looks like a botched robbery. And I've seen police reports. I've seen stuff most other people haven't seen. And I'm like, just sounds like a botched robbery. And then when I look at the stuff people are saying, they're like, well, nothing was taken. And I'm like, well, there's evidence of a struggle, and he got shot, and there was evidence of a struggle. So it seemed like that's what it was to me. But I don't know. If someone's got proof, I'm open to it. But I just haven't seen it. And so I'm very strict on that.
Yeah, that's a story that they smear you with here in corporate media. Like, they've smeared me, Jimmy Dore, Anyone who talks about it. In fact, that's the only thing. People throw that at me like that's the only thing they got, and they use it. They've been using it for 2 years that I covered that story and thought that there could be some relation to the DNC, that his death. But I never said, like Hillary killed him or Donna Brazile or Debbie Wasserman. I never said anything like that. But that's the way they act. They act as if, as if I'm making a lot of money off YouTube when I'm demonetized. Like, he did it for money, and it's just crazy, Lee. I won't even talk about it anymore. It's just way more hassle. I will never know. I do agree if Julian knows something, I'm sure he does. He'd have to know where his files came from. I wish he would say something.
He said other stuff in other interviews that indicate other possibilities about who it was.
It's never going to end, brother.
What's that?
I said it's never going to end, brother.
Yeah.
It's never going to end. But look, Lee, man, thank you so much for sitting down with us, man. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge. We could talk and keep talking about all types of stuff, man. But tell people where to go to find out more about what you're covering, what stories you're digging up.
The single best place is my Twitter feed, @Stranahan. That's the single best place. And then that we host periscopes of my radio show in 20-minute segments every morning. So tomorrow at 9:40. Tim Black will be joining us. I think it's 9:40.
Absolutely. No, 9:40. You're right, man. I didn't want to interrupt, but yes, sir. I'll be there, brother.
End of the week. We like having you on at the end of the week to go out on it's a good, and I'm biased, but it's the best morning radio show out there. It's entertaining.
It's damn good.
Garland, my co-host, is a progressive, and I'm not. And sometimes we'll argue, and sometimes we agree. We actually agree more than we disagree. But I love the fact that we have a show where we can have Medea Benjamin from Code Pink, and then James O'Keefe is the next guest, and then Tim Black is the next guest. Not that we're doing that tomorrow, but I love that. I love the fact that there's a show with actually different views, and different guests and everything else. So, and it's fun. That's why we got to get you in the studio. It's a fun show too. We make a lot of stupid jokes, and but we get in depth on stuff. So I'm very proud of the show.
Well, it's a damn good show, man. It's a fun time. It's an interesting, informative time too, brother. Sometimes I watch the show and just think about like what stories do I really want to hit, because you guys really go in depth on issues, guys. So definitely find fault lines. So they just find Stranahan on Twitter, and that takes them to the Periscope, or do you have a Periscope link?
I have a Periscope. It's all Stranahan. So if you go to Stranahan, if you look up Fault Lines Radio on YouTube, but we link to it. My Twitter feed is like my main thing right now.
Okay.
But we're on 105.5 FM, 1390 AM in Washington, D.C., in the Beltway. So 1390 you can pick up in Baltimore, for instance. The FM signal doesn't go as far, but you can pick up the AM signal down into Virginia, up into Maryland, and all over D.C., and we're on the internet and everything else. But I hope people check it out, because it really is. And you've listened to the show. I really like it's the best way to get a wide variety, which is the only way you can make up your own mind, is if you get enough data from all sides. And I think we do a good job of that. I love working with Garland's great. Garland's a great guy to work with, great guy to work with, great co-host, and brings a different perspective to it, which is good. And also, we one thing we said today, and you'll appreciate this as a comedian, Garland and I, without ever having to think about it and talk about it, have been very good at doing stuff like we switch the self-deprecating jokes, right? So sometimes I'll call myself old and stupid, and sometimes I'll call Garland old and stupid, and he does the same thing. And we don't plan it. But I never just it's joking around like you're with your friends. So I'll never do a joke about Garland 5 times in a row and not say something about myself. And Garland does exactly the same thing. So we've developed a nice on-air relationship where we don't take ourselves too seriously, neither one of us. But we do take what we do really seriously, because news sucks so badly now that we try to provide a forum where people get the truth, and enough of the truth where they can go, you know, I don't agree with this, I don't agree with that, but I learned something, and that's what we get. So it's a great show. People can call in and everything else. So I really hope people listen to it.
Well, you know it, man. Look, guys, go check out Fault Lines. Go to Stranahan, at Stranahan on Twitter. That'll take you to all this good stuff, and I'm sure he'll keep you up to date via Twitter. But look, once again, thank you, Lee, for the time, brother. Great conversation, guys. And look, I'll see you tomorrow right here, 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time for another edition. This is going to be Freedom Friday, where you get to phone into the show, just like they do on Stranahan's show. They take callers. Call into the show tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are out of here. I'll see you on the next one. All right, Lee, we are still live. We're still live. And we are done, my brother.